I'm Hayes Hartwig. This is Bamboo, Vancouver's property management and investment podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Man, we have got a heap of stuff to unpack today. There's changes coming to the rules. We've got the stats, obviously. Peter, we got a lot of stuff to unpack today, man.
Good. Yeah, I've been seeing, basically every day, new stuff in the news about changes and to the rental stuff on the rental side, sales side. A lot of changes, so a lot of stuff to talk about. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So without further, let's get into it. We'll just start off with the Vancouver stats. Metro Vancouver rent has actually had a significant rise of $39 for unfurnished one-bedroom units, maybe caused by the Airbnb rules, things coming in, because there's been a larger uptick in the furnished units as well, with the new Airbnb rules coming in for May 1st. What do you think? Do you think that's maybe causing a bit of this rise?
For sure. Maybe a bit of seasonality as well. It's just that usually when the weather gets a little warmer, the prices go up. I have noticed that I haven't had to lower prices as much, or we've been able to keep prices the same to get stuff rented. And in some areas, it's been quite busy. In other areas, it's been a little quieter. Yeah. But not surprised that there was a little bit of an increase, but still, in my opinion, it's been a bit of a slower start to the spring rental season.
The rental, with the sunshine tax. And that, so currently the average price sits at $2,376 for a one-bedroom unfurnished. That's $113 more than April of last year. So, it's it's about $1,200 and change more per month for the same place. So, the prices are definitely going up. And it's kind of interesting with that. And with the average price per square foot being at $3.17 for Metro Vancouver, top three being Vancouver number 1, Burnaby number 2, and North Van being number 3. Do you use price per square foot, by the way, for your assessments?
Honestly,
how do you
never? I don't think I've ever done that price per square foot calculation for a rental. To be honest, to do the pricing, go on to Craigslist, search for a one bed or a two bed or whatever the unit you're trying to rent is, and then just take a look at similar units in the area. Sometimes if it's like a one bed downtown, you can get more specific and be like between 500 and 600 square feet, and that'll narrow it down, because obviously you don't want to be comparing a 500 square foot one bed to a 1,000 square foot one bed. And then just look at the pictures, because that's honestly what I would do if I was looking for a rental for myself.
No, that makes sense.
I know some people do like that price per square foot, but as a renter myself, I've personally never looked at it like that. It's all about comparables. If I can get this unit for, and obviously the price per square foot will factor into that a little bit, kind of in the background, but I've never actually I don't do the calculation specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of calculations, we're talking about how there's been a larger uptick in the furnished units. When you're dealing with a furnished unit, how much do you give as an extra, sort of between an unfurnished one bedroom, the exact same one if you had furniture in it? Do you have a rough and dirty number that you do, or
it's tough?
What do you base?
It really depends on the furniture, I guess. I just picked up a client who's got a furnished unit, and I went to take photos, and it's super bare bones. The TV is 14 inches. It's tiny. The TV is so small. Sure, there's a nice little coffee table or whatever. The bed is fine, I guess. The couch is gross, has some a stain on it, and it's just not nice furniture, right? It's just not very nice furniture. So I told her, I was like, it's a detraction. Nobody wants your tiny TV. Nobody wants the couch. At that point, you're not getting more money for it. No. People will literally want the unit as is, but without the furniture.
Especially with the stain on it.
Yeah, I specifically pointed out the stain in my email to her, and she said, fair enough. So she recognized that, she understands. But some people, they'll have IKEA furniture and say, I've got all this beautiful furniture. In general, for long-term rentals, what I've always said is that people don't really want your furniture. Mm-hmm. I've got tenants that come from all the way across the world. They buy new furniture because they they want their own furniture, or they ship their furniture here from India or Australia.
Yeah.
People do that. So it seems like nobody really wants to, somebody else's furniture. And what I always say is in general, for long term, for short term, it's totally different because people don't want to buy a bunch of furniture for 2 months and then have to deal with it. But for long term rentals, like over a year or a year and going month to month afterwards, people, if you have an unfurnished unit, people just have to like the unit. If you have a furnished unit, they have to like the unit and they have to like your furniture. So the pool is much smaller.
Yeah, so it adds an extra cog to the machine that you have to deal with, right? So.
Exactly. And of course, somebody might come in and say, oh my God, I love your furniture and I love the unit. That's great. But it definitely is less likely to happen. So yeah, with all these furnished units, I've seen tons and tons of these furnished units on the market. Probably because the Airbnb changes that we talked about in a previous episode.
Yeah, we'll probably be talking about it until next month.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, we'll see what's going on. I guess there'll be a lot of used furniture for sale. So if anyone's a furniture collector, you can find a new couch pretty cheap now.
To be honest, like I totally understand if an owner or client has furnished the unit specifically for the purposes of rental.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time it's just like, hey, I'm moving out and I've got all my old crap that I don't want to throw out. and I just now want to keep it in the unit because it's going to cost me $200 to get rid of it.
Yeah.
That seems to be like 90% of why the furniture is still there. And if that's the reason you're leaving the furniture, it's pretty likely that somebody is going to see it for that and realize, I don't want this person's crap that they left from behind.
Yeah, I had a client once who tried to leave a kiddie pool filled with dirt. He said that it was a garden. That was a little odd. I was like, that ain't a garden, man.
Yeah,
That's not a garden.
I've seen some like a huge range of furnished stuff.
Yeah,
and then I've also seen the other side of it where the furniture's too nice, and you're trying to rent it out, and you're collecting $2,000 for a security deposit, but the couch is worth $30,000.
Yeah, fair enough, right?
And it's like, you don't want to leave this couch here because if the tenant puts a stain on it or whatever.
Then it's wrecked.
It's wrecked.
And now you have a $2,000 couch.
Yeah, exactly. So, furniture I would always try and stay away from, but just is what it is.
Yeah, the other thing I think to be noted for furnishing, there we go, is that you can't partial. Partial furniture looks like somebody didn't fully move out.
Yeah.
You either furnish the whole thing or don't, but no half.
Yeah.
It doesn't... it just doesn't play out the right way that way people think it's going to.
What I always say is the scenario that happens a lot is the owner moves out of the property and wants to rent it out, and they leave behind some or all or a bunch of furniture. I always just say, okay, don't unfurnish it all right now, but we'll advertise as nothing, furnished, unfurnished, whatever, same price. If the tenant comes in and wants the furniture, great. If they don't, they don't, and just be prepared to get rid of it.
Yeah,
or be prepared to get rid of some of it. Usually that works out pretty well.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Speaking Weird has touched a base a bit on the pricing and all that stuff. As we're recording this, we're just ahead of the federal budget where the feds are talking about bringing in a renter's bill of rights. Part of it is to disclose the unit's price history. They feel that it's going to help with negotiation and that sort of thing. What are your thoughts on this? Like, let's sort of dissect this. We may end up eating our words next month, but we'll find out. Let's dissect this and go through the points.
So the price history, honestly, in my opinion, is totally irrelevant to the discussion of negotiation. When you're negotiating with a landlord about how much rent you'd like to pay, the real negotiation comes from there being other units in the area that are a different price. What the unit used to be worth 10 years ago has no bearing on what it's worth now, whether it be up or down, usually up, but generally. But it just doesn't, I don't think it adds anything. I don't think it moves the needle in any way. I don't think adding a database of people can go back and look, oh, darn, I could have got it for cheaper 10 years ago. Of course you could have, but just like milk and eggs, but it doesn't matter what it is now.
Yeah.
So, that's actually a good example. When you go to the grocery store and you're looking at the prices of different milk, do you look at what it was worth 10 years ago and think, oh man, that's really going to change my decision? Or do you just look at the other milks and how much they cost? You look at those ones. You look at the other Oh, there you go. Good example. Like just like
way
that.
to just stumble into that.
Yeah, kind of stumbled into that one. So that's what I think is more valuable.
Yeah.
If there was a better way to do a database of all of the units in the area, so tenants could look at kind of, really what the rent is on average around there, that would be beneficial. I think what it used to be worth is not very beneficial. I think the idea was that they go, oh, well, you're increasing it by a lot, from the last tenant. So I think it should be worth less. Then the landlord just says, no. I just don't see the negotiation there. I don't see how that would be helpful.
And I've had a couple of landlords call me worried about this. And then once you explain to them, on the sales side, the sales history is there all the time. Does it change anything? Absolutely not.
Exactly. So, you can look up, you bought this condo for 20 years ago for $100K and now it's 600.
Yeah.
But that means nothing.
Yeah. They're not going to be like, oh, my bad. Let me lower that down.
Yeah.
For you.
So I don't see the negotiation there. But if they want to create that database, why not?
Yeah. Right. So now, one of the other points that was sort of sneak peeked when they presented that is that they're talking about trying to bring in a national standard lease agreement for across Canada. What are your thoughts on
I actually haven't heard about that. National sounds interesting because all the different provinces have different rules and stuff like that. So
that's what I was thinking.
You would need to change stuff anyways, or it might say, if you're in BC, tick this box. If you're in, and then these rules apply. It sounds complicated. So
not to mention the fact that, Quebec never participates.
Yeah.
So they're just like, yeah, no.
Would it have to be in English and then in French right afterwards
right,
to be national? Yeah, I haven't heard about that one. Sounds silly to me.
Yeah,
they already have a BC one. It's not mandatory or anything like that, but they already have a standard BC one. If people want to use that, that's great.
Yeah. Although it is silent on a lot of things.
It's true.
It's
true.
That standard RTB one is
for sure. It's pretty vague on a lot of stuff. At the end of the day, if you write something in the lease that is not enforceable under the rules of the Residential Tenancy Act, then it's not enforceable anyways. So it doesn't matter, right?
Run into a couple of those.
Run into it a bunch of times where the owner wants to put something in that's unenforceable, or the tenant reads something in the lease and says that's not enforceable.
Yeah.
If it's not enforceable, it's not enforceable.
Yeah. So it's not going to work.
Don't worry about it, Yeah.
So now another couple of the parts that they've added is they thinking about having $15 million to help fund legal and organizations fight rent evictions and landlord abuse. Thoughts?
Specifically for tenants looking to fight landlord abuse. That's great.
Yeah.
Honestly, I
think it's a good idea.
It would be awesome
if
there was no bad actors, or if we could do bad landlords. That, makes the rest of us who are good landlords look bad. So
yeah, I think it's a great idea.
That sounds fine.
It's only going to affect you if you're
bad.
Doing bad things.
Yeah, I think the more money that they put into rental related things.
Yeah.
But all these things that they're doing, some of them we've talked about haven't been the smartest ideas or maybe the most effective, but the more they do, it can't hurt usually.
But that leads a great segue, Peter. You're a good lad. Is that they're also talking about having the rent now being registered and going towards tenants' credit, which I think is a brilliant idea, especially since you and I brought that up a few months ago. So I guess Trudeau's listening to our show.
Yeah.
That must be what's happening.
Obviously. I guess so. I think that's a good idea too. Yeah, why not? It makes sense. You pay a lot of money for the rent as a portion of your income. So if you can add that on to your already stupendous credit score, then that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you don't pay the rent, then it goes down.
That's what I want to make sure of. I hope that it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Right? If it does, then that's a great idea, I think.
I think that would give it a little more teeth. That's good to hear.
Yeah, because I bring that up with landlords all the time currently because it's not registered, and so many of them feel that the credit score is the end-all be-all for doing a background check, and I always have to advise them that the rent doesn't go to the credit score, so they may have a great credit score and still not pay their rent.
Yeah, because it's not connected at all.
Exactly. Right?
Obviously, it might it's indicative perhaps of something, but you're right. They're unconnected. So
yeah. So hopefully they bring that. I'd really like to see that one in. We'll find out It's Tuesday today, so we'll find out in a few hours, and then we'll be able to dissect it again next month on the next show. So we'll figure that out. But just kind of interesting things to touch on, and just wanted to get your input on there.
Yeah, sounds good.
So currently the active listings in Metro Vancouver are at 75% apartment. No surprise. With the partial homes have started going up again. It's up to 15% now. Perhaps people are changing suites from from short-term rentals to long-term. Have you seen more suites coming on the market? Doing your price checks, or even are they calling you?
Yeah, but personally, it's been about the same. Usually, that kind of proportion makes sense. Honestly, probably a little more. Mm-hmm. We probably end up renting out, more than 15% of the stuff I do is probably more basement suites. More, okay. It's probably like 20% or something like that.
Oh, so you've been picking up a lot of basement suites.
Yeah.
Has it been raising or just
it seems like kind of the same? I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. I'm not really necessarily paying attention unless it was like a huge drastic increase, but maybe it has in the last couple of months, and it makes sense. I think this Airbnb change is shifting a lot of different, we keep talking about it, but I think it's because it's affecting lots of different aspects all at once, affecting prices, affecting furnished units, affecting basement suites. It's affecting a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed I've been getting more calls from people who were running Airbnbs and they're actually selling. They're planning to sell. They're really investigating it, because switching over from short term to long term, the money's significantly different.
It's not there,
right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of them are thinking to just cash out. They've had their Airbnb run for a while, and now they're thinking about just cashing out before having to deal with the long-term tenants and not making as much money as they were month to month, because some of these places are just making insane amounts of money on Airbnb.
Totally, yeah. I mean, some of these places are making like 6 months worth of long-term rent in 1 month.
Oh yeah,
like literally 6 times the amount.
Yeah,
so
it's. I can understand why some people are thinking to just that's enough. That the ride's over.
Totally, especially if they were are super over leveraged with their mortgages, and if they own a bunch of these properties and a bunch of them all at once are they're probably facing a serious cash flow issue.
Yeah, fair enough. Right?
I understand for sure.
So of these active listings, it's pretty close to half and half, with 2 beds just edging out the 1 beds. Are you seeing that out there as well? Are you seeing are your 1 beds moving quicker than your 2 beds generally?
For sure.
What you got going on there?
Usually 1 beds are quicker. 1 beds are always going to be quicker, just because they're lower priced, and you end up getting a lot of couples moving into 1 beds anyways. So then the 2 beds honestly end up being roommates a lot of the time. A lot of the responses to the advertisements we get are roommates, just because they're able to split the cost of a 2 bed more effectively.
Yeah, of course.
At the end of the day, 1 beds are always going to be the most popular. And then 3 beds never. So don't buy a 3 bed.
I have actually found that the 1 in den is the primo stuff. For sure. You know what I mean? Especially if you could use it for a baby's type of room. So they may not have a kid, but I find that with our current state, how a lot more people are working from home or hybrid or that sort of thing. So they have the bedroom, and then they have the den where they set up their office, if you're whatnot.
100%. The one in the den is super essential. Yeah, I think whenever I go into a place that is just a 1 bed and doesn't have anything else, I know it's going to be a little bit harder to find the right person.
Absolutely. So for those of you who are listening and thinking of investing, try to find a 1 in den if you're trying to find the lower entry level type of way to get in there. 1 in den is definitely easier to rent, I would say, than a 1 bedroom
for sure
on its own.
But don't go into the 1 in den and then think that you're going to be able to advertise it as a 2 bed.
Correct.
Because I've had that happen before, where somebody said, "Oh, I've got a 2 bedroom," and then I go look at it and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I guess you could put a mattress
and take up the entire floor
space, and there's no window or closet, so
yeah,
it's not a bedroom." So just yeah.
So the most expensive cities, BC has 4 out of 5. Markham actually got pushed down to number 5 now. They were number 4. So good job, Richmond, I guess. But the top 4 being West Van, North Van, Vancouver, and Burnaby is now slid in there. Burnaby also had a really high increase So I'm assuming there's a couple of
There was a
buildings.
huge hillside Concord build, like 4 towers that all opened.
So they're just, as per usual. I noticed that one all of a sudden skyrockets.
It's always,
these possessions.
Yeah, so I'm actually trying to rent one out right now. It's relatively difficult because there are like 40 identical units, literally identical, and they're all priced exactly the same. Or, and whoever prices lower gets the tenant. It's difficult when a building just opens to compete with.
Yeah, I was going to say about this, like, do you have any tricks that would sort of help separate you? Do you think maybe using like digital staging or something like that would aid in that?
Honestly, I think you just have to compete on price. That's like literally what people like. Nobody cares about the difference between the 28th and the 34th floor.
No,
like, nobody cares.
Already a monster
of a 64th floor building. Like, it doesn't matter. They're all exactly the same floor plan, or they're almost all essentially the same floor plan. You'd either just wait a little bit and leave it empty. Unfortunately,
yeah.
You just wait a little bit until the dust settles and the competition kind of disappears, or you just lower the price and get it rented right away, and then so the owner just needs to decide what the best strategy for that is. Obviously, we take great photos, we take a video tour, but at the end of the day, when there's like 40 little dots on Craigslist all in the exact same area, the chances of somebody actually clicking on it are difficult.
Yeah, of course.
I've seen people post their own ad like 40 times or a bunch of times at different areas and stuff. I don't think that's a great idea, but some people like doing that. So.
Yeah, I flag those as well. If I see it posted in totally wrong area, I'm that
guy. Or
guy.
it's like completely
that guy
wrong
who flags it.
Area. Yeah,
it's like, dude, this Coquitlam is not New West. Like,
yeah, I know. I've seen some funny ones on Craigslist. Like some of them, like in the water. Like they've tagged them like in the middle of Vancouver Harbor. And then it's like Burnaby. Not quite.
Good swim.
Yeah.
So now here's something that's a little bit heavy, and it was actually came across my social media, and it was in the news as well, that Live.Rent reported that people on their platform have been using 61% of their income for rent. I personally haven't seen this in any of my units, but have you seen anyone applying with like a seriously skewed amount?
Not really. I had one the other day that was pretty high up there, like 50 or 60, but then she said I have a guarantor. So
yeah,
it's kind of different. But not usually. Generally, the 40 is kind of the most that I would see that people apply for. Usually, 99% of the time, if somebody sees the unit and applies for it, usually they fall in that 30 to 40 range.
Yeah,
usually
they have the self.
Yeah, they understand. They know what their budget is. Usually, I'm usually quite surprised when somebody's like very serious about it, and then they are like not even close to the income required to rent something.
Yeah.
But I did see the same article that they said people are spending a lot of money. I'm sure there are a lot of landlords, maybe like with basement suites and stuff like that kind of don't care as much or want to roll the dice and take the risk, I guess. But yeah, I do totally understand that some people... Yeah, that could, that's not necessarily people looking for like super luxury units and spending. That's people just trying to get high. That's probably just a lot of people just trying to get by. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny too. I think that having using an online application or just an application in general, I think rattles the cage enough that somebody has to write down that number. As soon as they see that, they're like, I'm not going to bother. These guys are obviously going to check into me. There's no point to this exercise.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree. I'm sure maybe there's people that we show properties to, and then when I say, oh, you can apply on our website, we need proof of income, proof of this, and they go, okay, I don't really have any of that. So
yeah, like cool story, bro.
Bye. Skip that one. So yeah, but I did see, 60% is significant.
But here's what I'm trying to figure out though, right? Because Live.Rent last month in March reported that 34%. So now I realize that there's been a bit of a lift. We were saying at the start of the show, but enough to almost double. Like what happened?
Yeah.
So I'm super curious. I don't know, but it just sort of seems strange that
I think we would probably have to look at it over like a longer period of time, like maybe a month. A month is a while, but maybe a month isn't, like over the course of a year.
Yeah.
And take an average. You know what I mean? Because I'm sure there's fluctuations month to month.
Yeah.
And we obviously do look at the month to month for rent, but that's a little different. But these kind of like different sample size of incomes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that's surprising. I wouldn't have thought it would be.
I'm also wondering, just because Liv reported that the furnished were significantly higher going up than unfurnished. So I'm wondering if that's maybe skewing the numbers.
For sure.
Especially with May 1st coming closer, I have seen a bit more of an influx of furnished units, as we've talked about over the past couple of months.
Yeah.
And now we're in the witching hour. So I'm sure there is a flood of furnished units. All of a sudden, there's more of them. This is going to skew your numbers because they generally rent for higher, right?
Definitely.
So that may be what's causing it, but just sort of curious. I just sort of like, And I just noticed as soon as I saw 60%, I was like, holy hell, like that is significantly more than it was the month before.
Yeah.
So kind of just an interesting sort of tidbit there, as it were. Now, we had talked earlier in the show about the proposed federal changes, but now we also have changes that David Eby? Is it Eby?
Eby. Eby's the sushi.
It's delicious though. Okay, so David Eby has proposed and apparently put one through already. So let's get into his proposals and or sudden changes. So before it was that they were planning to extend the owner occupancy for use from 6 to 12 months. Now they have done it as of April 3rd. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think this is a good idea?
Yeah,
so it's bad.
So that's the 2-month notice for owner's occupancy. Say that if the owner wants to take back the unit from a tenant, they used to only have to live in it for 6 months before they could do something else with it. And usually that would mean re-rent it or sell it or whatever. In this case, they've changed it, and they've already changed it. I looked it up. It's on the BC Residential Tenancy Act website. And they've changed it to 12 months. So the owner has to move into the unit, or their owner or their close family member has to move in for 12 months. I think if you're not doing anything sketchy, it's not really a big deal.
Yeah.
If you were only going to move into it, if you have 4 sons and you rotate them in every 6 months to kick tenants out all the time, I guess maybe you're angry about that.
Yeah.
if that was kind of your game plan before, but if you're just using it, how most people should be using it, as in a big life change and they need to move back, or they're traveling for 2 years and then they need to move back into their unit.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make that much of a difference, but I can totally see how the all of these changes together are starting to, for some people, make long-term rentals less attractive.
Yeah.
It just adds a little more friction on the landlord side and more rules to kind of
just some more governance, I guess. But I mean, I agree. I think that having to stay there for 12 months is not a big deal. I think as well, like for the snowbirds, it's not as big of a deal because obviously at the start of the tenancy, you say that you have to move back in 6 and that's when it ends. So I think that that's how it will take over. I mean, it's brand new, obviously, so no one's tested this yet. But I could imagine that, you have a fixed term tenancy. I'm returning on the 31st of whatever month. That's that type of thing.
Yeah.
Stay for 6 and then leave because the tenancy was supposed to end there. So I imagine, but will this overlap? Who knows?
For sure.
Right?
Yeah. I'm not sure what the implications of it necessarily are, but I think if it's, like we said, if it's being used the proper way and in good faith, not much of a change.
Yes. Now, one of the other changes that has been proposed is that they want to extend the notice given for that personal use. Currently, it's 2 months. How much more? Who knows? Let's assume 4. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that it is good? Okay.
I think 2 months is a pretty long time. If you can't find yourself a rental in 2 months, then you're doing something wrong.
Right.
Honestly, it doesn't,
Yeah.
It's, I think more than 2 months would be a little silly. I think 2 months is pretty reasonable. It's 2 months with a month of compensation as well. So, I don't think it should be more. Personally, I
agree that it shouldn't be more. And the reason for it is a couple of reasons. The first one being is generally I find that if an owner has to move back into their own rental, usually something's gone wrong. Job loss, divorce, whatever it may be. Usually it's not happy fun times. And I think that having to extend this might be a little bit more harder on a landlord because generally, like, you have an investment, you want to keep that investment generally making you money type of thing, and now you're moving into it yourself. It's not making you money anymore. Well, as far as an investment goes, you're just paying down your mortgage type of thing, right? Yeah. So there's that, as well as the fact that on the sales side, I think that it's going to cause a little bit of a problem if they bring this in, simply for the fact that 4 months is a long closing time.
Yeah, if they make it longer, and I mean, I don't think they said how much they would increase it to, but the renoviction one is 4 months, so I guess that kind of makes sense that if they were to increase it, they would probably make it 4 months. Yeah. But yeah, no, I totally agree on the sales side that if you say, oh yeah, we can complete in 4 months from now.
Yeah,
it's a long time.
It's going to be a little tricky.
Adds more friction to the sale, and yeah, no,
absolutely,
totally
right?
understand there. So.
Just troubles with insurance and all that sort of stuff, right? So I hope that they don't extend that. It seems a little bit silly to me. Speaking of extending, they also want to extend the time to dispute an eviction from 15 to 30 days. Any thoughts?
I don't know. To be honest, I think that once it gets to that point and people dispute anyways, like, what's another 2 weeks, right? It's gonna take months to go to before the RTB anyways. So you tack on an extra 2 weeks, sure, if they want to increase it, whatever. I just find once it gets to that point, you're in for a world of pain anyways. Whether you're a tenant or a landlord, it's all just unfortunate. So it's I think we've talked about it before. If they were able to reduce the time between filing and actually talking to an arbitrator on the phone, that's the big needle mover.
They do claim. They do claim. But we'll get to this.
We'll get to it.
One more that we're coming through. But as far as it goes for extending the time to dispute, I personally just wonder why. Because if I get a notice for eviction, it's not going to take me 2 weeks to figure out whether I want to tell you to bag it or not. I'm going to be like, hell no, instantly. Yeah. Right? So why extend this? That I don't understand. The rules are there and all that. Like, anybody who gets an eviction notice is going to know immediately if they're okay with this or not.
It's usually, usually pretty quick. You're right. It doesn't seem like a necessary change.
Yeah, it sort of seems, I know that one sort of seems a bit of a showboat almost.
They're just thinking about doubling everything. They're like, let's just make things more time. Time.
Exactly. More time is great.
Maybe they're trying to buy the RTB is trying to buy themselves more time.
Yeah.
to process these applications so that they can get to them.
Yeah. Now this one that we're bringing up right before the claims and all this, they want to take away the ability to increase the rent for adding children under 19. I think this is a great idea. Because I've never understood why all of a sudden it is. Do you know you're bringing your kid home or having a baby and all of a sudden you want $500? Like,
so I've never had this situation before where a tenant has this has happened. But I've read the stories in the news and stuff, and I always thought it was totally silly, made no sense to.
It's kind of a dick move.
It is that the landlord says, "Oh, I need more money because you had a child."
Yeah,
I mean they already have to buy diapers and all that stuff, which I've been told are expensive. So, I personally, I've always thought it was a bit of a dick move.
Yeah.
Anyways, I hope that it shouldn't be like that anyway. It shouldn't be like that anyways. So if they just remove it, then that would be great.
Like, I've had a couple of tenants actually call me and say like, "Hey, we've had a kid. Like, does this change anything on the contract?" No. Why would it, man? Like, congratulations is the only things that you should be getting.
Yeah, I don't even think it's really the landlord's business, to be honest. I mean, the kid's not gonna. It doesn't change anything really. Like,
well, exactly, and that I'm also looking at changes for like family switches. Like, you've got separated parents and the kid's living with mom or dad or whatever, and then one has to move away or gets into a new relationship and they don't like the new person, or also a host of things, and they want to move back home with the other parent. Now it's going to cost them. Like, I feel like I don't get. I
feel like what is it trying to prevent, or like what is the purpose of it?
Yeah,
right? Other than just get more money, like, for nothing. Like, I just don't.
Exactly.
I don't see the rationale behind it. So
yeah. So that change.
Totally agree.
I absolutely agree. Let's bring it on.
Yeah. Like, honestly, if a tenant reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm having a child," like you said, I would just be like, "Oh, congrats. That's great."
Absolutely.
Like, nothing really else to say.
No. So you're talking about as far as getting things done quicker. They are talking now that apparently it'll be 50% shorter to be heard at the RTB with a focus mostly on unpaid rent or utilities. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, wonderful.
It's a good idea.
Reduce the time, 100%.
I think it's a good start. They did say in the same article that I was reading, I believe it was CBC that had put it up, that now it's going to be from 10 to 5 weeks or less. So, I mean, it's still going to be possibly a month to do.
But that's not bad, actually. I think I've said it before on the show, but I had one about an some unpaid rent, and it was literally 11 months.
Yeah.
And the tenant already moved out and whatever, and I got the monetary order, woohoo.
Yeah.
And, had no forwarding address to give to the tenant or to serve it to the tenant, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing I can do. But, 11 months, way too long. 10 weeks, still too long. 5 weeks, better. Sure.
Yeah.
Moving in the right direction.
I will take whatever shorting of the time we can get.
Totally.
And that. But this is what the thing that's funny about it is with these changes that are being produced by David Eby, see, we learned things today, that it's supposed to be for the protection of both landlords and tenants. That's a direct quote from it. But as far as all these changes, I mean, the only change that's really going to help out a landlord is the claim time would go down to 50% that they're saying, but shouldn't it have been that way to begin with?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously going to be a little unpopular to say a bunch of stuff that'll help landlords. I honestly, I think that changing the time, the claim time is paramount. I think that's like the most important thing. That's like my number one grievance. I've been to RTB a couple times, unfortunately. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And most of the time I'm like, fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's just that the time in between, the time that it takes is just complete BS.
Yeah.
The other thing that I always have a problem with is the RTB not being able to enforce anything. And sometimes it just feels like a complete waste of time. Even, they say, oh, congrats, you won your RTB case. Here's the monetary order. And here's a piece of paper. And great. Stick that on my fridge.
Yeah, right?
Literally worthless because never able to collect. So I think all of this, everything we talked about just emphasizes the need to find a good tenant initially.
Although I wonder, if they come through with the rents now going to the credit, there must be a way to find out who that's attached to.
That's pretty.
So that may actually change. I mean, I'm just kind of spitballing here. We don't know how it's going to look or whatever, but I mean, you would assume they're going to be living somewhere else.
Totally.
With somebody who's going to have to report that Joe Smith is living here now. Like, I don't know, right?
Yeah, I think almost everybody has a credit score. So starting to attach credit scores to tenants and rent and all that stuff, I think is extremely beneficial. It's good for the good tenants. I feel like the only people who don't want that are the bad tenants.
Which exactly, and that's why I'm hoping that it goes both ways. Because if we are rewarding good behavior and disciplining bad behavior
as well,
I'm into it.
Totally,
I'm 100% into it.
Totally. I think a little while ago there was this company that we talked to called the Landlord Credit Bureau.
Yeah, they switched to Open Key something.
They were talking about kind of this sort of thing and combining the credit score with the rent payments and stuff like that. But it wasn't like an official thing. It was kind of a company that was kind of
trying to urge this along,
assisting with this. So I think if the government can just do it, then wonderful.
That might be kind of working out pretty good. I mean, I can understand how they're trying to do with the credit score and trying to track the rental pricing. I mean, this would work. I'm assuming they would implement it by basically a landlord to just have to report that Peter's living at XXX Elm Street. So they'd have to report the rent, obviously, because what are you keeping the credit score on, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I guess these are
already declare. You already go on and declare 10 different things a year for all your different underused housing taxes, right? So what's another declaration?
Yeah, one more box
of rent.
It should be no problem.
Upload
right?
the lease and that's good.
Yeah. So I mean, I can see this actually being a pretty good thing. Oh my gosh, did I say something good about the government? What? Sorry, all very tinfoil hat wearing people. My bad. Send hate mail to Peter. Well, I think we've covered basically everything that we were planning to unpack there. Do you got anything to add on there?
Oh, not really. I think it seems like every single week, or even like every other day, I'm seeing new stuff in the news about changes and proposed changes and housing stuff, and it's obviously on the forefront of everybody's mind. And they are actually changing things. It's not just proposed things. There's actually changes that are happening. So hopefully we continue to move in the right direction, and a lot of the stuff I'm seeing is beneficial.
So yeah, I see a lot of that. I don't see anything super caustic, I guess, is the easiest way.
No, I haven't seen anything where I've been like, oh my God, this is going to completely affect the landlord and tenant landscape for the rest of humanity. So everything seems pretty reasonable. And if they just keep on doing it, then
keep on going.
Keep on going, yeah.
Cool. So if someone's trying to get a hold of you for your insight on the rental world,
yeah, you can give us a call or check out our website, vancouverrented.com. Phone numbers and emails are all on there. Thanks for having me again and again. Yeah, no worries, man. I'll put your contact in the description as well. Perfect.
If you've been listening this long, thank you very much for staying tuned, and please be sure to like and subscribe us so that you will be up to date with when we have new shows. My name's Hayes Hartwig. This has been Bamboo, Vancouver's property management and investment podcast.